There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Oh, no, not again.
There is a sixth...
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host at Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney, who apparently is coming through my actual laptop, which I'm not sure why that's happening. So we'll find out.
Is that what was going on?
Yeah.
Huh.
So let's see here. We'll turn all of this off. Currently. Alright, say something?
Something. Testing. The stream started playing.
Yeah. I can still hear you coming through the, I'm really not too sure. Anything there?
Oh, bunch of background noise there.
Yeah, nope. Still,
Well,
try again.
is my audio doubling for you guys in the chat?
You sound like you're actually coming out of my microphone. I'm not sure what's going on. Of course we have audio issues. Of course. I actually may need to
While you fuck with that, welcome to Matt. Welcome to Diphesius and the Mad Iranian.
Yeah.
Who was asking for a Discord link.
Well, give me 1 second, because we're probably... Give me just a second here. Let's see if I can do this.
I can hear you. Testing. All right. We back? Back in the saddle again. What was that? Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was good. There are 2 streams going. One says ROM Space Night issues 1 through 6. The other one says This Christmas in Comics. And I don't know which one we're actually live on.
Ah, there we go. Okay, I'm here. I am here.
All right, we good?
I think so. Who the fuck knows? Who the fuck knows? Probably not. We're probably fucking this all up.
Oh,
right.
probably.
All right, so we're back. Let me throw the Discord link in the chat again. There we go. There's the Discord link. 0 out of 10 audio would not bang. I don't blame you, Dillard. Also, thanks to Dillard for having me on the other night. That was fantastic. We got to talk to Pocket Jacks and rib him a little bit about tweeting out to Gail Simone on Christmas. He said that he enjoyed all of the things that were going on, and you know, that's fair. That's his thing. I just laughed at it. We didn't have any blood sports. I think that pissed some people off in the chat.
Right.
But what are you gonna do? Right? I mean, you can't please everybody, Ayrton. You just can't please everybody.
Oh, I'm well aware.
So anyway, I'm gonna end this stream. All right, I'm ending this Christmas and comic stream. That was a fuck up on my end. I figured that out. The link is still. I'm just gonna go and delete that retweet because that was stupid. And yep. So we'll just pretend like nothing happened because apparently YouTube will continue the stream going for a few minutes. Anyway, I want to thank Dillard for having me on. I got entirely too drunk on that stream, so thanks for that. I had to go to work the next morning. So you're a fantastic lover like me. You can please everyone. I'll have to take notes, man. I'll have to take notes. I'm married though, so I really only need to worry about the one. Your avatars aren't showing. You're streaming on 2 shows. Yes, I know, Matt. I ended the second stream. We'll fix
in with the Canadian tech support over here.
Yeah, there we go. We're back on the screen. We're back. Yep, 11 minutes in, and we're finally ready to start the show. We're rolling into this new year fantastically, Ayrton.
Well, it's not the new year yet, so.
But we're rolling into it fantastically. Like we are the shit shit pile rolling down the hill, ever accumulating.
No, we're the guy like who pushes the entire marathon, and then right as he's getting to the end, he just shits himself.
Okay, yeah, that's true. We've got a new ad to the Discord, neither enemy nor friend. If you wanted to jump in and talk about something, let us know. Jump in the waiting room. Other than that, tonight we have an interesting show going. I revisited one of my favorite comics from the past. See, Ayrton got this one shot from IDW, a ROM Space Knight one shot, and he came to me and he said, "I picked this up and this was cool." And I said, "Slow your roll, son."
Well, I've heard you talk about it.
I said, "Slow your roll, son. You don't know. Cool." Well, the thing is, the IDW story, and I don't know if you picked up on this from the one shot you read, because admittedly I haven't read it yet, but the IDW story is very different. I mean, it's somewhat similar,
Yeah.
but it's very different from the Marvel story. Final boomer moment of 2019.
Yes.
God no, we have 2 more shows, Matt. Don't put that evil on
Yeah,
us.
come on, man.
We're not even going to get through the next
What do you
show
think
with
this
the
is?
final boomer moment. But
We're
anyway,
both just gonna have heart attacks and slip and fall and break our hips at the same time.
oh god, yes. And the show will still go on. We'll just be bitching about having broken hips and talking about broken
Yeah.
hips in comics. Aunt May, God bless her. Actually,
I am adding that to the list.
I don't know if Aunt May has ever actually broken her hip, but you know, if anybody in comic
Well,
books
we're
has.
gonna. I'm adding it to the list so we can Google it later.
All right, fantastic. All right, so what do we have here? New mentions. Okay, you mentioned me and everyone. All right. So, ROM Space Knight dates back to 1979. Was written and drawn by. Excuse me. Blah blah blah. Was written and drawn by Bill Mantlo and Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema respectively. But the original idea for ROM, for those that don't know, was a toy. This was during the toy craze. The Ninja Turtles, I think, had taken off. When were the Ninja Turtles created?
Well, that was 80. Something like early 80s.
Well, that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What's that? The Wikipedia. 84. So this predates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This was Parker Brothers designing a toy and then going to Marvel Comics to tell a story about it. So they wrote the 75 issue epic with how many annuals were there? I think there were like 4 annuals of ROM, maybe 5. I don't have time to flip through the box, but I think it was 4 or 5. I could be wrong. I mean, it's obviously here in this Wikipedia article that I just have not read yet. There were 4. Okay. But Rom was just kind of a weird character. The first couple of issues, you can kind of see that they're very wary about introducing him into the landscape of Marvel within the first 3 issues. I think it's issue 2 or 3 where you actually get a reference to Marvel canon with Shield Agent. But as we go through this story, you'll also notice that there are several tropes that are familiar to the Marvel landscape that you just wouldn't really expect to see redressed. One of which being the shape changing.
Sorry, I just want to interject real quick.
Okay.
On eBay, you can get some vintage original ROM Space Knight action figures for, let's see, about, in good condition, about, let's say, $200.
That's actually kind
like
of a
the
steal.
Box and all the accessories
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
kind of a steal, and I do actually want one. It was such a crappy toy too. See if I can find a picture of it.
It looks awful.
Yeah, let me see if I can find a picture of it to bring up on stream. ROM Space Knight toy. Live on here. I didn't expect that we'd get into the topic of the toy, but yeah, you can get one for between $200 and $300 in the box. The 1979 release.
I mean,
but
when we were going through the golden age of comics, I definitely Googled like the old toy ads in those comics. So why wouldn't I look up?
yeah, that is your bag. Let's see here. There we go. That's a good image. Let me copy the link. Copy image. There we go. So let's just bring this up on stream here. New browser. Don't display it. So we'll throw that up. Alright. Let's just get that up on stream for the lovely people. there is ROM in all of his glory. He had his
in 1979.
he had his neuralizer. He had a charging cord. You could charge him. He had laser eyes.
It's like space age technology back there.
Yeah, he had laser eyes, I believe, but I mean, I think he had 2 points of articulation. So this is that was the toy that set off ROM Space Knight, but the comic book actually exceeded expectations and went on for 75 issues. I don't think the toy sold that well. And I as Ayrton brought up earlier, I regularly mention that my crowning achievement in back issue bin diving has been being able to assemble a full 75 issue run of ROM Space Knight. I only have 3 of the annuals, but I have the entire run of the individual comics. So that's I'm still looking for annual number 2. I think it's either 2 or 3, but. Somebody brought in a bulk of like 20 of them, and it was like issues 14 to 30 something with like 2 or 3 in the middle missing, and I picked them up just because they were in a quarter bin somewhere, and I read them, and oh my god, it's so fucking cheesy. But
oh yeah,
yeah, I'm still a little salty for Marvel letting the rights go to IDW. I think the reason that happened is because IDW now has what they call a Hasbroverse, and ROM, which is still owned technically by Parker Brothers, the character of ROM, which I think let's kind of get back to that. The character of ROM has always been owned by Parker Brothers. Now, all of the trappings of his backstory belong to Marvel Comics, which is why when we finally get to the IDW line of ROM, you'll see 2 very different origin stories for these characters. I think the only thing that Parker Brothers owned was ROM, the concept of Space Knights, and the concept of Dire Ray. So the home planet or the home empire, Galeron, all of that was owned by Marvel. So once it went over to IDW, they couldn't just reprint the origin and dress it back up. They had to give him an entirely new origin. They had to change the way he got his armor. I mean, just all kind of shit. But we'll get into that a little more once we get to the IDW. Oh, no problem, Iranian. Again, we have a waiting room underneath the show chat if anybody wants to call in and comment or, even just give us shit, whatever. We're down.
that's what we're here for.
Indeed. But anyway, with that brief introduction, that was not so brief because of the technical difficulties, before we get into the book, what did you think of it? You talked about it a little bit off air, but
Yeah. So, I'm going to preface this with saying, my damn car popped a belt again. So me and my dad had to tow it home from my work parking lot. And I was like, it's 6 issues. Whatever. I didn't take into account that it was from 1979. And so I get home and start reading. It was like, God damn it.
SJW
So
Spidey
many words.
in the chat. Actually, hold on. He mentions that Space Knights are part of Marvel canon, but keep it going for just a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So I get home, start reading it. I think this has happened pretty much every time we've done a comic from this area. I always think like, I got plenty of time to read, 6 issues when there's 4 times as much dialogue in those 6 issues. I got through it, but that was my initial reaction. Oh shit.
Well, then that does kind of raise the question of what SJW Spidey was saying about Space Knights and Wraiths being very much part of Marvel Cosmic. If there were Space Knights in Annihilation, then how did IDW get the rights to that stuff? Because Marvel's not used to coming off of rights like that. I mean, I know they use Marvel for some, or IDW for some of their printing, but usually they have the Marvel and IDW logo on those books, and ROM is very much an IDW property now, so it's interesting that they allow. Well, also, I don't think that ROM was getting a comic book during Annihilation, though, was he? From IDW, so that's another question to look into. Marvel event. The Annihilation is a 2006 crossover, and ROM Space Knight is in IDW was having licensed the character from Parker Brothers' parent company IDW or Hasbro IDW Public. So yeah, Annihilation Marvel still had the rights because I guess the Space Knights and Wraith, but Parker Brother always maintained the rights to ROM. So, but that was 10 years after Annihilation. So there's some hubbub in there. That'll be an interesting story to look into. I'll have to dig deeper into that as we continue through this, because I wasn't actually, well versed on that. I just assumed they got it from Parker Brothers when they got the rest of the licenses for their quote unquote Hasbro-verse. So that's an interesting topic to look into for another day. SJW Spidey. I'll dig into that and see what I can dig out. But yeah, Space Knights were in Annihilation, but Annihilation was in 2006, which was 10 years prior to ROM going over to IDW. I'm pretty sure that Parker Brothers own the rights on that one, and that's what the Wikipedia says, but, the Wikipedia is god-awful, so what are you going to do? But anyway. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at Wikipedia for just Space Knights.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see if there was any
they
information
brought up the
in
Space
there.
Knights during the Pimtron thing, if I remember right. Yeah, like I said, I'll have to dig into that, because they may... I mean, I don't think you can trademark something as simple as Space Knights. Go ahead. What did you find? If you want to link it, we'll look at it. Link it in the show suggestions.
So Marvel... Yeah. So Marvel retains the ownership of Space Knight and Space Knights with an S, except ROM the Space Knight, which is a separate license that's owned by or a special separate copyright that's owned by Hasbro and licensed to IDW. So that's how they got around that.
Okay. That makes more sense. But yeah, I didn't see Marvel just coming off of it in order to give Hasbro a title. So.
Yeah, the copyright stuff is funky. You can get it down to like overly specific stuff, like just to like the same thing can give you a different copyright from somebody else.
Right. Or as you see, they're putting ROM the Space Knight as opposed to just ROM Space Knight.
Yeah. So Marvel owns the Space Knights as like it's like that group of heroes, but then ROM, the Space Knight, is separately that just one specific character of the Space Knights is owned by Hasbro.
Okay.
So
yeah, that'll be something.
They can make like Jeff the Space Knight.
Yeah, they. That'd be great. So
he's like lazy and really bad at his job.
Oh man, yeah. He's a former Hydra agent that wanted better dental or some shit. So we read through the first 6 issues, and like Ayrton said, they're pretty wordy. However, after you get to issue 2 or 3, you realize that a quarter of the book. My children are going crazy in the background. You'll have to forgive me. But you realize that, a little under half of the book is really just recap. It's rehashing of the same shit you've already read in a previous issue.
Yeah.
So,
Which is tedious when you're reading them back to back like this, but as we pointed out, it's nice for bringing in new readers. If they were to see issue 4 on a shelf, be like, "Ooh, that looks cool," they can jump in and read that issue and not be entirely lost.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, you said that it was wordy, and that's kind of a pinnacle of '80s comics. What's going on, Captain?
Yeah.
Good to see you, buddy. Oh, we do have somebody in the waiting room. Let's see what's going on here. Come on. Queso, you're on the Gospel of Comics. How's it going?
Hey, what's up? It's SJW Spidey here.
Oh, what's going on, buddy?
So,
hey.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So, here's a fun thing about the Space Knights. I think it was actually when Flash Thompson was Venom, he was a Space Knight as well.
I do remember that. I didn't know if that was part of the same thing or if they were just rebranding the moniker like they did Captain Marvel.
Well, and here's something interesting about ROM is I'm kind of surprised Marvel let him go as they did, because James Gunn he cites ROM as one of his inspirations for doing Guardians of the Galaxy,
Right.
and other Marvel cosmic type stuff.
Yeah, and ROM being a cosmic character, in these first 6 issues at least, you don't really get a sense of any interaction with the Marvel canon proper, which was kind of it was kind of usual for Marvel back in those days. You didn't get a whole lot of correlation in the first couple of issues in case it bombed, and you didn't have to explain where this character went. He just wasn't part of the overall universe. But then they start slowly trickling in things like S.H.I.E.L.D. and premonitions of Doctor Strange and things of that nature. Then eventually he meets Marvel heroes proper and all of that stuff. But no, from what I can tell, Parker Brothers retained the rights to ROM and was only licensing it to Marvel. So ROM itself was always theirs to give up. That's what the general consensus that I'm gathering. They never owned ROM outright. They were licensed to use it, and in an Angela from Spawn type of way, they retained the rights to all of the lore and everything behind him without having his actual name. Like who was it that created Angela? I'm blinking on it right now. Not Grant Morrison.
It was Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, he owned Angela, and I think to a certain degree Medieval Spawn, and he lost on Medieval Spawn and kept Angela. So Angela was brought over to Marvel and given to the Thor lineage to be thrust into obscurity for the rest of her life. And
he traded Angela for Mr. Miracle, I think.
And
right? Am I thinking of someone else?
I think you're right on that, because he did Mr. Miracle as well. Which we still haven't gotten a completion of, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Miracle has never been finished.
Yeah.
Like, he got the rights back, and he's like, I can't finish this shit. I'm not doing the same drugs I was back then.
He's not done writing books about angsty children and abusive parents.
Right.
He'll get around to it.
Yeah, eventually. He'll work in Mr. Miracle having a kid or some shit. But no, from what I can tell, Parker Brothers never gave up the rights to ROM proper, and that's how we got the fiasco that we have now.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Well, it's also another example of Bill Mantlo getting screwed over.
Yeah, and that's a damn shame, because he was a fantastic writer.
Yeah, I think it was only after a lot of pressure that Marvel Studios ponied up for Rocket Raccoon.
Right.
They tried to play it off like, out of goodwill.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. They vaulted the Micronauts. Cloak and Dagger finally got a TV show, but I don't think he gets a piece, or his family gets a piece of that or anything.
No.
But I mean, he's responsible for a lot of stuff. Like, he was on track to be a very, very high contender for someone as influential. Maybe not as influential as Stan Lee, but he had a big hand in the Marvel universe. He did a lot of work with Moon Knight if he didn't directly create him. I mean,
Yeah, if Marvel didn't have shady rights practices, Bill Mantlo would very much be a millionaire
right.
instead of living in destitution in a home,
Now that actually, I know we're going to get into the story, I promise. But this is just too interesting to kind of turn down. Do you think that the fact that creative rights were so tight with Marvel and DC, is that the reason that storytelling has become so stale in the last 20, 30 years? Because, I mean, how many times can you play with the same toys in the toy box? You know what I mean?
There's always new stuff you can do. It's a matter of, there's a fine line between editing gripping too tight and editing letting too loose. And I think Marvel is at an especially hard time finding that balance.
I don't disagree
because
with that.
your writers were miserable. Yeah, the writers were, and I guess the general staff at Marvel were miserable under Jim Shooter way back when. But now you got guys like Cebulski and Brevoort who they just let the writers run wild, and that's also kind of backfired.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean,
it also kind of shows. I mean, you're getting shit like Civil War II and, just rehashes of stories that we've already seen with, I mean, frankly, SJW trappings. And it's just...
Yeah, entirely.
And, I mean, look at the shit they've done just this past week. This was a news story that I was going to bring up but didn't quite get to last episode. The $9.99 incoming from Marvel, $10 for 90 pages of ads.
I saw that at I saw incoming at my local comic shop, and I picked it up and kind of scanned through it, and I saw the price. I was like, no, $10, no thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I
didn't even have anything in my box that week, so it was...
Right. I mean, that's becoming the problem with a lot of people. Nowadays I pick up a lot of the number ones that are reprintings of books that I don't own. And outside of that, like, I think the last new thing that I picked up and read to its completion was Scooby Apocalypse from DC. Like,
oh yeah, this is the first time in probably a decade that I've got... I don't have a lot of books in my box, but I think I've got more DC and independent books than I do Marvel.
Right. And that used to be like,
and I'm picked like...
Yeah, that used to be the norm, would be to pick up 5 or 10 Marvel books for every, 3 to 5 DC books. You'd always...
entirely.
People would always get Batman, but, you'd get Spider-Man and X-Men and Avengers as well, or some shit like that. But anyway, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm getting a little off topic here. I want to talk about... I got a lot I want to talk about, like the wild out there stuff they're starting to do with DC Black Label. Like The Last God has been really great. The Hill stuff, the horror line they're trying to start.
Hill House.
Yeah.
Also pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's really...
I love Basket Full of Heads so far.
It's great. It's great, and you've got a lot of more art driven books starting to get pushed out there, and it's good to see. And I do think it has a lot to do with crowdfunding comics.
I don't disagree.
They're starting to see the effects.
I don't know if you heard our tumultuous discussion on what we think the future holds for the comic industry a couple of days ago, but we brought up the idea that, you know, Marvel and DC are going to start taking a lot of ideas and possibly even the format of crowdfunding over the next course of time, because it only makes sense. But I think we're starting to see at least a small sampling of that. If let me pull it up here. Here we go. Uh, we've both backed, Ayrton and I have both backed a book called Monster MD. I'm sure you're familiar with that crowdfund. I mean, it's all over the
Yeah,
place.
Von Klaus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, you can share your thoughts on it or whatever if you like it, don't like it, think it's stupid. But
It looks good so far.
yeah, I mean, it was one of the first books to actually capture my attention. But Mark Waid is embarking on a Doctor Strange, the world of magic.
Yeah.
The Surgeon Supreme. You know, blending the world of magic and medicine. And while that's not directly like Monster MD, it's essentially mixing House into a comic book kind of thing. And
It is kind of aping.
you know, if you don't think that Mark Waid has his finger on the pulse of crowdfunding, and he knows about Monster MD, and he knows about all of these even smaller projects, if you don't think these professionals are watching this shit and taking as many ideas from things that succeed as they can, without being able to be called out on it, then I think you're crazy. Like, I think that these industry professionals are absolutely looking at these $1 million campaigns, looking for the next big hit in their respective writing genre.
Oh yeah, I can promise you that they've got to be watching EBS's campaigns like a hawk, because he did basically sell the same book for $1 million.
Yeah, and
That kind of profit off of one big issue is,
well, the thing is,
you can't just sweep that under the rug.
yeah, his initial campaigns cost money on production. What he's doing now is selling the overflow. So without shipping and just pre-prep, he's making straight profit on everything besides those first 3 campaigns.
Oh yeah,
And that's
undoubtedly.
and that's insane. It's more if he makes $500,000 in profit, then that's more than any comic book has made in the last probably 10 years individually.
No man, yeah, all eyes are on him. They're watching. They got to be watching Zach too.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with this, because this is Mark Waid's book, and we all know that he knows about crowdfunding because of the lawsuit.
Where are those feet? God damn it!
Yeah, 1000%. But here's the thing: is Waid, he still turns a profit for Marvel. His independent books might not be selling for shit, but the guy isn't a bad writer.
No, you've heard me laud
He's
it
good
on
and
the
he's
show.
on time.
Yeah, you've heard me laud him multiple times. 2 of my favorite comics are Irredeemable and Incorruptible, and those are some of his works. I mean, one of my favorite DC books of all time, Kingdom Come, has his name all over it, even though I have my own theories on that. I'm sure, from what I feel like, Alex Ross wrote that book and Mark Waid edited it, and then Alex Ross wrote the companion piece in Marvel called Earth X. Like, it's the only thing.
I like
It's the only thing that I can come up with, because the stories are almost identical, just with different trappings.
Excuse me, I've got
Anyway,
kind of a flu over here. But yeah, no, it's I am. Here's where I'm getting at though. They're watching Zach like a hawk, and I'll be surprised if like they're probably gonna offer him a job. Maybe not within, maybe not now,
Really?
maybe not within 5 years, but
You
I
think
think
so?
he can push a book. He's a fucking nobody. He got all this attention on his own, and he by himself pushed a $250,000 comic, right?
Yeah.
A completely
I
unknown
I
property.
I think it's gonna. You're gonna have to see Marvel or DC like dip real low with how much
Uh,
all like the big wigs in those companies
No.
like went
No.
after him.
I
I
disagree.
don't
You don't
think
think
so.
so?
I disagree.
I don't think so. I don't,
This is exactly what they make new imprints for. Look at Joe Hill.
That's a good point.
You know, Joe Hill is not near as controversial as any of these Comicsgate guys, but they made an entire imprint for him so that he could do what he wanted and have creative control and, you know, do his thing without it being a quote unquote straight DC comic. It's a Hill House comic published by DC. You know, they did the same thing with Wildstorm. They did the same thing with Marvel's Universe X or Universe 2 or whatever when they had
yeah,
Star Brand and all
MCQ.
that
Yeah.
shit. Well, when they had Star Brand and all that shit in the
Spider Girl. Spider Girl got her own.
that
universe.
was M2. I'm talking about the universe, like
Yeah.
the separate universe they created that Star Brand came
Okay.
from. But they make imprints all the time for reasons exactly like that. And if I don't, you know, I think that they are actually going to start scouting a lot of crowd-funded, you know, creators to bring their properties. They're not going to start scouting them to come create something new. They're going to want what's already popular, and they're going to want creative licensing over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like their
Well, and
T-shirts and Funko Pops and shit.
here's why I think they're probably, I would say within the next 5 years, going to hire Zach, maybe even EVS back. Maybe not Marvel or DC, but I mean, I think it's going to happen because how can you, as an industry professional with a name that sells books like Bendis or Wade, Sean Gordon Murphy's doing it.
Yeah.
How do you see that and keep working for relative pennies to having your own property?
Without bringing a major change about in the industry, yeah. And
yeah,
with
without having to without having to be under, you know, Marvel editorial or DC editorial, without having to answer anyone but you and your customer.
well, that and you know, with Marvel and DC taking as much flack as they are, like DC not so much, but they caught a little bit during the Rebirth era, which is why they cut that shit short. You notice they stopped branding stuff Rebirth about halfway through the run.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but just to pull away from that negative publicity, even though the run was still the same, like it's still volume I think 4 of Batman or whatever, and all of that, but it's just not Rebirth anymore. They just pulled the brand down, and what I'm seeing is that a company like Dark Horse or Image or somebody like that, Image especially, is poised to take up a lot of that lost market share because they don't have a shared universe. They don't have a code of conduct that you have to abide by to make a book. I mean, you can have several different types of books under that Image imprint because that's what Image has always been. You can go from having shit like Spawn to having something like East of West.
Yeah. An Image is great for getting your book distributed, getting your book published, and that'll save a lot of people in the trappings of actually producing the book. You know, not so much the writing and art, but
Centurion in the
you know,
chat says scouting crowd-funded creators could be why a few folks, etc., are trying to neg people like Zach, EVS, and Jeff and the Vestige crew. Yeah, I don't know why Anti-Comicsgate and Anti-CG do what they do. It's ridiculous. You know, at first I thought it was all, you know, I thought it was all kind of a infamous type conspiracy where maybe they were getting paid to be controlled opposition for what could grow into something that's an actual threat. And with over $5-6 million in crowdfunded comics in the last 2 years, Comicsgate is a big threat to the comics industry.
Oh man, I see. I've got a fun theory about Lauren too. By the way,
Oh, yeah.
Lauren
Yes.
Cooper, right? Because she got in on that little Deadbeats gig, and she was talking about how she had a little project planned, something big for her, right?
Yeah, right.
I think Brevoort, I think either Brevoort or Cebulski were courting her for her own book.
Who?
But I think the reason that they haven't
No, who is it that keeps getting flack for like retweet? It's Quesadilla, right? Joe Quesadilla.
yeah, Joe Castada, he's another one.
I know his name. He's
So
Joe
I think
Quesadilla.
I think the reason I think that she hasn't gotten a book yet is because they are scouting guys like Zach, right? Because Lauren produced a short story in Deadbeats, made what, 30 grand?
33
Sold
grand.
what, 33 grand. How many issues did it sell? Physical
God,
copies.
Let me pull that up. I can do that research real quick. Go ahead and keep going.
Yeah. All right. And you got to think, how many of those sales are people buying it because of her? There were some pretty good people on the book. They had a Batman artist on there I liked. That's besides the point. But she's not as good at selling a book as Zach is.
Right.
Yeah.
They
And
sold.
they know if
They sold 244 digitals, 69 regular pledges, 500 for the print edition. So they sold roughly 800, 900 copies.
okay, that's not bad for an independent comic.
No, I mean,
That's-
but it raised
That's respectable for.
it raised $33,000, and I'm guaranteeing that 90% of the digital copies were just there to share it around and hate on it.
That's fine. That's still sales, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey,
But how many writers and artists were on that book?
it was like 40 teams or some shit.
If all of that,
20 teams or
So-
something. I don't know.
yeah. So all of that isn't enough draw to bring in what, a quarter of a Comicsgate book, right? One of your bigger Comicsgate books.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't even bring
Marvel
in
has
half of
gotten
what
over
Monster.
that.
It can't even bring in half of what like Monster MD or Downcast or Flying Fortress brought in. Even those are smaller tier books. No shade at those guys. They're great books. They're great creators. Eric Weathers has been on
But
the
they
show,
don't-
but they don't have the
Yeah, they don't
draw
have
or the
the
platform that EBS does.
Exactly. They don't have a history in the comic industry like some of these people do. They don't have the connections that Lauren Cooper has
Right.
with her stupid fat face.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's not about what you know; it's about who you blow.
I can say
That's
that after I blocked her for blocking me, not seeing people retweeting her has been the best thing ever.
See, here's the shitty thing is I was looking forward to her deadbeat story, right?
And it was just
She's
a bunch of
pretty
people
funny.
It's a bunch of people fucking, right?
It can be pretty.
You there? What just happened?
Hello.
Hey, yeah, you're there.
Did we
You're
lose
there.
you?
I hear you. I can hear you. You sound like you're in a cave, though.
I'm getting every phone call right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead and bump me out.
All right, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Come back.
Yeah.
All right. That was a fun little interlude.
I'm liking this new bringing in callers thing.
Yeah. So
It's fun.
yeah, it's good. But anyway, where were we? ROM Space Night, right?
Yeah, I have no idea where we were.
we were we were talking about the difference between the IDW and the Marvel comic. The
Yes.
reasons for that. That's how we got distracted. But even
Yeah,
though these were six,
That's where we were.
even though these were six really wordy issues with I think 19 or they had between 19 and 20 pages of story between them. Once you cut out all the ads and everything.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
ROM here, and I've got to say, in issue 1, they do a fantastic job of just introducing you into the story. They don't start off with the origin. That was a very common way that Marvel would introduce a book. They didn't just dump you into an origin. They just give you an introduction of the story. Rom crashes into the planet. He's here. And then a few pages later, after he has a little conflict and tells you what he's doing, which his whole purpose, for those that don't know, because, well, this is an 80s comic and people didn't read those. But a comet comes to Earth, but it's not a comet, it's Rom. And basically, Rom is here to chew bubblegum and exile Dire Race. And unfortunately, he's all out of bubblegum. So with Bill Manilow on script and Sal Buscema on art, we've got Tom Orzewiski on letters and Bob Sharon on color. The first thing I want to point out about this is classic, just amazing comic book art.
Oh yeah, I love the art in this.
The backgrounds, none of them are sparse. You don't get lazy backgrounds. You get just whitewashed backgrounds. I mean, sometimes you might, but not very often. But also, look at this fucking Chad on the cover, and then think back to that toy we had brought up. Okay, with his figure skater arms and his just like scrawny little legs. But
And he has much more points of articulation than that toy does.
He does.
So.
He does. So Rom lands on Earth, and the first person he encounters is a woman named Brandy Clark. Now, I kind of almost got a flashback to the origin of Cyberfrog in this because, and before anybody goes posting on Twitter or anything, I'm not accusing EBS of anything here. It's just a very common trope of the damsel in distress in the beginning of a story.
Yeah.
But you have an alien creature.
Because all comic book fans are misogynists who hate women. So.
Well, I mean, as we'll find out later in this discussion, this woman's boyfriend is a misogynist who hates women. I thought this fucking comic was written in the 40s. But it's good, though.
I read his voice in a Scottish accent.
Yeah, see? I read it like a 40s gangster, but what are you going to do? But anyway, you kind of get a lot of internal dialogue. Obviously, you can see on these couple of pages, as Ayrton was saying, I mean, there's a lot to read through in this book. But Rom basically rescues her from running off the road when she almost crashes into him. And, you get your first experience with his energy analyzer. Now, this is a fantastic little gimmick that they bring up and explain in every single issue of the first 6. Yeah, he's ready to fight some Decepticons.
Think of reading those old.
But
reminded me of those old like X-Men comics where as the characters are using their powers, they're explaining what their powers are doing, like in their internal dialogue.
Well, Stan Lee, back in the day, had a saying that every comic is someone's first comic. And back in those days, he was right. Nowadays, nah. But with the mentality that every comic is someone's first comic, you want to not make them go out because, I mean, back in those days, again, even so far as like the '80s, you could return comics, and there wasn't really a back issue option. You know, you
Yeah, and
didn't
Al
get
Gore hadn't invented the internet yet, so you couldn't Google things.
right. So you had to kind of get this backstory. I mean, at the beginning of every issue after the first, there's this little blurb at the top that explains who Rom is.
And I like the blurb.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mind it. I'm just saying that's something you don't get as much anymore.
Right.
Now, after he saves Brandy and scans her, we find out that his energy analyzer will reveal a dire wraith from the Dark Nebula. And, you know, he lets her go, and she drives home to her hometown, of which I don't think Rhymes follows her specifically. In fact, he gets there before she does. But they wind up finding two dire wraiths in the energy analyzer. Rom does respect the women. Actually,
Of course.
Rom's a gentleman.
The utmost of respect.
Right, Rom's a gentleman. But he goes to this town and he uses his energy analyzer on a couple of guys and discovers them to be dire wraiths. So he just pulls out his fucking neuralizer.
One thing I want to point out.
Go ahead.
So this is, you know what, this is, you know, a couple pages in at this, and
Yeah.
this is what made me kind of go like, okay, I love this. His internal dialogue going like, I can sense that they're afraid of something, but that they can't be afraid of me. I'm here to help them. And
even though he hasn't explained
I
this at all.
Exactly. And I read it like Spock or like a character like that who just doesn't get it. It's like,
Yeah.
why should
And
they be afraid of me?
That's pretty apt on his personality because, again, as we'll find in these first 6 episodes, Rom is a human that was merged with cyborg technology. But anyway, you see him here with his neutralizer, which is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. Some common language from back then. But let me give you kind of a brief discussion on the dire wraiths real quick, which is explained pretty soon in this issue. He shows up in the middle of town. He runs his energy analyzer over everyone. Now, it doesn't hurt you. The energy analyzer will only reveal if you're not what you say you are. So he just nukes these two guys and leaves a pile of ash in his wake. And
damn, we need those for modern dating to make sure there's no meat and two veg down there when you're chatting up a chick at the bar.
Man, that's hot take. But he just straight up like murks these guys, and then he finds Brandy Clark again, in the woods, and he uses his translator to have a discussion with her. And this is where we get the backstory. The Galadorian Armada is, supposedly like this ubermensch fucking peace-bringing fleet that roams around the galaxy bringing light, prosperity everywhere it goes. I like how the guy's wearing a swashbuckler. Like he's wearing a saber in this photo here. Everybody's got swords on their sides. Like, what the fuck kind of sword fighting are you doing in space? Like, are you really getting boarded on a high-tech spaceship and having a fucking duel with swords? Are you going to duel with blades in the middle of space, Ayrton?
Okay. Yes. If Elon Musk is successful and we can take casual flights to Mars, I'm wearing a goddamn sword on my hip while I'm in the spaceship.
Are you saying we're
I'm
going to be
gonna
space
get like a
pirates?
long like pirate.
Is that what the
Yes.
show's going to become
get
if
like
Elon Musk gets to space?
Oh, of course. I'm gonna get like a long coat and like a big hat.
Well, I actually learned recently from my wife, and then had it backed up by Tipster News that I don't know if any of you guys are familiar. Anyone with children will be, but Ryan's World on YouTube is the most profitable YouTuber in 2019. $26 million in ad revenue.
I heard that he's some kid that just opens toys, right?
Yeah, well, he also has his own toy line. My mother-in-law got my son a Ryan's World egg
Oh,
for Christmas. I think that's terrible exploitation of your children. $26 million is $26 million. So I think what needs to happen is if they colonize Mars and they open up Mars Tube, we're just going to reset the show and we're going to open toys and play with them on stream. And yes,
On
Tipster,
Mars?
I'm totally biting your joke, and I don't care. It was funny. But yes, we're going to play with Martian toys and just totally seal up that
Hell
niche.
yeah.
We're going to totally seal up that
I'm
niche on
totally
Mars.
down.
Yeah. But, they said they weren't going to do it
I
because
can
it would
dig
be
it.
creepy, but $26 million, $26 million. I would take $26 million to play with children's toys, but anyway.
I mean, I'll do quite a bit for $26 million.
We're not going to get into that discussion because we'll be here all night going over more and more horrible things until we find your line. But anyway, back to Rom. They do his proper introduction about midway through the book. And oh yeah, he also has a Nick Jr. TV show. But that wasn't counted in his revenue. His revenue was strictly based on ads alone in that article. So $26 million plus royalties for his toys, plus his Nickelodeon show contract. Yeah. So, but 200 years ago, the Galadorian Armada finally met their match in the Dark Nebula. So the entire Armada was just.
I like how. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I have to interject again. I like how they use nautical terms for like space.
Yeah.
I don't know why I find that entertaining, but I always have.
Well, I mean, again, you have actual space pirates, so.
Yeah.
But
just something I've noticed is kind of a trope, not just in comics but science fiction in general. It's always like space or like nautical terms.
Yeah. And you have I'm sorry, it's just funny. You have the Dark Nebula, who are inhabited by the Dire race, and the Dire race are described as scientist sorcerers. I'm just going to let that sink in. Scientist sorcerers.
Which, like, where was that during career day as a kid?
Right? Like, I can be Tony Stark and Stephen Strange? Sign me the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly.
So, they encounter the Dark Race, they get into this big fight, and the Dark Race summon this, giant bird dark creature. I think they call it the Dark Wing or something like that. I don't know that they ever.
Which made me think Darkwing Duck.
The Deathwing, the all-consuming Deathwing.
Yeah.
And the all-consuming Deathwing destroys Dire Race and Galadorians alike. It's terrifying, destroys the entire Armada. They can't hold it off. So we cut back to Galador, where the Supreme Chancellor, Overlord, or whatever, Overlord, Josh Moon is the Overlord of Galador. he calls for the young men to volunteer to sacrifice their humanity to become space knights and fight off the dire race. And I'm sitting here thinking, wait a minute. Hold the phone. You're telling me you're a
Wait a minute,
civilization.
Rob.
You're telling me you're a civilization so advanced that you've encompassed the entire galaxy up to the Dark Nebula and spread peace and prosperity. You've accumulated the weaponry from all of these peaceful civilizations who used to be warlike. You have the weaponry to make iron suits to create space knights. Why don't you just scale that shit up and put it on some spaceships? Why is anybody got to lose their humanity on this shit? Like, why can't we just Star Trek this shit up? But that doesn't feed the purpose of writing a story about a toy, so I'm gonna let it go. Not trashing the story or anything, just looking at it from a logical perspective. Like, wait a minute, we got to gimp some people into some armor that they can never take off and lose their humanity, and live 200 years. That just sounds fucking awful. Like, I'm in my 30s. I've lived 30-something years. And sometimes I think that's too much. I cannot imagine seeing anything over the course of 200 years.
Like, maybe our advancements in medicine aren't the best thing ever.
Well, think about it. Like, how shitty would it be? You're 200 years old and you're walking around like, I remember when you could get nachos. Man! And, because nachos aren't a thing anymore 200 years into the future. They don't make corn chips anymore. They figured out that corn was the cause of all the cancer. Cancer is all caused by corn. So you can't have corn chips. Therefore, nachos are obsolete. And you're just walking around remembering nachos like...
That means no more moonshine.
That means no more bourbon.
I'll take the cancer. Fuck it.
I think that's why we still have corn. But
yeah, that too.
I'm just saying, living for 200 years just seems a little fucking excessive. But, I'll take it. I'll deal with it.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you have a very similar trope to like what Nor and Rad would have. You've got this cosmic entity who has an expanded life and heightened powers. And then you also have an enemy that is very reminiscent of the Skrulls. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, you've got a shape-shifting enemy that can look human and is hiding in plain sight and can change its form into anything. It's basically a Skrull. Uh-oh. Oh, no, it's okay. She ran back. My daughters are attempting to subvert the show again. They're going to get me one day.
Of course.
One of these days, you're just going to hear me like put up a struggle, and then my two young daughters are just going to take the show over, and probably have more subscribers.
You'll hear a dull thud.
Yeah.
And then hear you like screaming in the background with duct tape over your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, duct tape to your chair and be like, yeah.
Yeah. So
it'll be great. I'll just be sitting here laughing.
Yeah, it's like the basic opposite of Bender. This guy gives up his humanity for loyalty, and there's a wait. Oh. But anyway, you get 1,000 or so space knights out of this whole thing, and the way they describe the process is a little brutal, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little like, I don't know if I would want to do that. As cool as it would be to have a robot suit.
Well, they essentially graft the armor to you permanently, where only they can remove it, and it turns you half cyborg, half man, even though you have no humanity. So he's still technically human under there, but he has a lifespan of apparently the ability to live past 200 years old. And he goes around the world. Now he doesn't kill. That is one thing that that does set him apart from most other vigilantes, if you will. Because again, once upon a time on this show, we're gonna have to cover the Skrull kill crew. That is some crazy fucked up shit. But it's nothing like Rom. Rom is just fantastic. He's a good boy. He didn't do nothing. But anyway, he tells his entire origin story to Brandy Clark. He single-handedly defeats the Deathwing, and that's why he is the greatest of all Space Knights. And he'll tell you that multiple times over the course of the next 6 issues. He doesn't have an ego or anything, but he is the greatest of all Space Knights. So, and I think that's about it for issue 1. I mean, they get into a little more. No. Well, there's a little more. The National Guard comes to take care of the ROM issue, and he pretty much single-handedly dispatches them. And this is where you figure out that Earth weaponry can't hurt him. Now, there are a couple of dire raids that you see in the top right-hand panel discussing how to dispose of ROM. And they pull out a blaster, and this blaster becomes the point of contention for, I think, the next 3 issues of people saying, well, that doesn't look like anything from Earth. And I'm sitting there thinking, how the fuck do you know? Like, you're in West Virginia. Also, that's another major plot point. This entire story takes place in, like, West Virginia. So, that's another... I mean, maybe that's a way they kept it disconnected from the actual Marvel universe for the most part, considering everything happens in New York there.
Yeah.
Unless you're a West Coast Avenger, in which nothing ever happens, but they still tell your story. But you get to the end here. This is where they pull out the blaster, and the blaster hurts Rom. But Rom says that over the course of 200 years, he's become much stronger. Flying through, and he'll talk about this again further on. I don't know if he mentions it here, but he's like, I have, I've flown through comet storms and through stars and shit. You can't hurt me. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
ROM Space Knight, bitch.
Pretty much. Chad Middleton in the chat. Would he rather be naked like Dr. Manhattan? I would rather be naked. Like, if it was socially acceptable for me to go everywhere naked, I would definitely do it.
I mean, if you keep letting your beard grow, eventually it'll just cover your junk, and then you can't get in trouble for indecent exposure.
You're not wrong. My wife did
Remember, my Twitter name did say Esquire for a minute there, so I know what I'm talking about.
Right, you are a legal expert. Legally at this point. But at this point we leave Rom off of his first crowning issue. He's he's ostracized. Everybody thinks he's a monster except Brandy Clark, who somehow believes him. Like, honestly, I don't know that
That's because she's a woman.
I mean, I don't know if just a 10-minute conversation with a giant robot would convince me, but what are you gonna do? And that opens us up into issue 2. Now, God damn it!
I mean, we somehow convince women to have sex with us. So, I mean,
one had a child with me, 2 of them exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, should they really be voting?
But anyway, you get a picture here. Like I said, the giant red blurb at the top of the right-hand page on your screen. That's the pre-intro that you get before every issue of ROM going forward. It changes a little bit as the story progresses, but for the most part, it just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. But again, just looking at this stuff, I have to say it's amazing. Now, one thing that I do have a little bit of an issue with is the character scaling. I can never tell if Rom is like 6 feet tall or 6 stories tall in any given scene unless he's right next to a human being.
Yeah, the perspective was a little fucky.
But
I mean, not like Rob Liefeld fucky, but
yeah. Oh, we've been joined in the chat by Dan Gams. How's it going, buddy? Gams the man, or should I say, Ayrton's arch nemesis. I like to think that he's a supervillain that's just like weaseling his way into your trust so that he can kidnap you and make a good story for us one day.
you know, that's funny that you bring that up. Back in college, a buddy of mine posted on like one of those cork board things where you can,
Ask legal
offer to,
questions.
lick people's feet, where you can offer to like lick people's feet clean for cash and like walk their dogs and shit like that. He posted on there like, I'm looking for an arch nemesis, not to cause each other any like physical harm, just to try and ruin each other's day.
But this issue opens up with ROM Space Knight intervening in a bank robbery. Although he's not intervening,
which I thought was odd.
Yeah, he's not intervening to stop the bank robbery. Turns out he sensed a dire wraith in the area, and it's not clear how he does that. Like, can he just like it shows it later on, but at this point you're like, what the fuck? But he sensed a dire wraith in the area. However, it's none of the bank robbers. It's the guy that runs the. Well, it's not even a bank robber. They're at a laser emporium or some shit. Like, it's very strange.
Oh yeah, the
Laserium, I think it's called.
Oh, what? Yeah, Laserium.
And I've never been to a laserium, and that upset me a little bit.
I want a Laserium.
I mean, Elon Musk has one, but he doesn't tell people about it. Yeah. But anyway, the manager of this place, or whatever, the guy that has the combination to the vault, is a dire wraith. So Rom swoops in, doesn't do anything to stop the robbers from kidnapping this poor man. He just neuralizes and sends this guy to what can effectively be called the Phantom Zone. It's eternal banishment to the dark realm or some shit like that where they can't cause any harm, which is very Superman-y for the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, he explains it like
it's limbo.
Yeah, like in between dimensional limbo or something like that.
It's the Phantom Zone. It's the place Mon-El went when he was dying from lead poisoning before he joined the Legion of Superheroes in the 30th century. But anyway, Rom murks this guy and gets assaulted by lasers by a guy named Artie. What's his name? Artie Stryker.
Yeah.
Archie Stryker. And this guy becomes obsessed with Rom. Like, he's a safecracker. He doesn't kill people. Which brings my question to mind. Why does a safecracker need the manager to open the vault? Why doesn't he just crack open the vault? Isn't that what his job literally is? Or does safecracker mean poking a gun in someone's back until they put the combination in?
Well,
tomato.
It's that whole like modern. Yeah, well, it's that modern like safe cracking.
Oh, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
and that's why we have communism running amok.
Archie,
safe crackers would just rather point a gun in somebody's face instead of sit there with a stethoscope and figure out the combination.
Well, Archie sets off several lasers, and they don't stop Rom, but they hurt him. So he escapes, setting the place on fire. The criminals are captured, but one of the cops is a dire wraith, and lets them know how much Archie hates Rom and has vowed vengeance because he sees Rom as killing humans. Um, it's very like if this was a modern comic and they were telling this story, uh, everyone the dire wraith turned into would be a minority, and this would be a social justice warrior who was lauded as a hero, and the story would be completely different.
You're not wrong. Don't give them any ideas, goddammit.
But here we're introduced to Steve Jackson. Steve Jackson is Brandy Clark's girlfriend, and he shows up and basically, broads and dames his way around Brandy, and everybody's telling her that she's delusional, she's in shock for.
Your nerves must be stretched thin there, doll.
Yeah, everybody's telling her that she's delusional, she's in shock, she needs to rest because she believes this robot. Which, I'm inclined to agree with at this point. Like, he hasn't really proven himself. Maybe don't be so trusting of a guy in a metal suit. But, the very Beauty and the Beast kind of relationship forming here, and you'll see that kind of unfold. She even talks about how he flew off without saying anything and all that good shit. But he comes to learn more about Earth from Brandy Clark, and she's the only one that really knows about him and isn't scared of him or whatever. But Steve is watching from the bushes like a cuck, and
I didn't know Matt Jarvo was in this comic.
and he calls the police and tells them that Rom is there. So, it kind of sets up the whole, Steve is just an uninformed asshole kind of thing. Well, you cuts away from this scene for a minute, and you get this really interesting part that I think. Apparently, the dire wraiths have been on Earth long enough to establish, places of command in certain areas. One of which being inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. They have their own agent. However, most of them seem to be stationed in this little West Virginian town so far. So it's really, it's really kind of out there. But like I said, it's a lot of fun. You get to see a little bit of how their organization works. And later on in the series, you'll find out that there are Earthborn dark wraiths that are seen as lesser, as opposed to the firstborn race that came to Earth. But they're going over their whole plot to, stop Rom, the greatest of space knights. But this panel here and the end of the last issue kind of give you a look into the fact that they don't have to maintain their human form. They can take the form of animals, as Sister Sweet takes the form of a crow, or a raven rather, and flies to this hideout. So Steve confronts Brandy later on, and Rom uses his analyzer on him, and Steve just freaks the fuck out. Like, everybody freaks out, even though the beam literally does nothing to you. They're all calling it a death beam, which is very 80s, very sci-fi. And
I mean, if a 7-foot robot guy came and started just shining a red beam at you, wouldn't you freak out a little bit?
I mean, at this point in my life, probably not. It wouldn't be the
just do a
strangest
shot
thing.
of whiskey and be like, "Come at me, bro."
Basically, like, you really want to do this? You're paying the bar tab if you lose. But anyway, Stryker's in the back of a police car, and they take him to the scene to verify that this is the same Space Knight that they saw. And Stryker's trying to start to get the idea that these officers and agents have known about Rom for a long time, and they're like, yeah, we've known he was coming, but it's top secret. We couldn't. Yes, his analyzer, correct. Hail war campaign.
A very deep analyzer.
You get the scene of this guy pulling out another unearthly device, and they start talking about how they've been expecting Rom. Oh shit! I'm supposed to pull this down. I don't want to get a copyright strike. Now, then they do the unforgivable, I think, which is completely brushed off back in the 80s, but nowadays it's just completely unforgivable. They killed Brandy's dog in the crossfire trying to kill Rom.
I know. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then they never talk about
You can't
it.
kill it. You can't kill the dog.
They
What the
killed
hell?
Yeah, they introduced the dog and killed him in this issue and then never brought it up again.
Yeah,
It was
she
very
wasn't even like
strange.
mad about it.
Yeah, no. She wasn't even like crying over the dog or anything. But the dog's name was Tempest, and Rom knew that. So it's very cheesy and very 80s, but obviously Rom comes out of this, this interaction without any kind of real damage. Archie watches Rom neutralize another human being and swears revenge for that one too. Sucking dick for smokes, hit me up. That's gonna get clipped.
You might not want to put that out on the internet.
No, I said it. Dan Gam said it in the chat. It's gonna get clipped. One day when we have like 1 million subscribers or some shit, there's just gonna be an audio leak of me saying "sucking dick for smokes." Hit me up. Then we'll get canceled, or we'll get a lot of DMs.
Probably a lot of DMs. Hey, somebody will send that sound clip to Rob Liefeld, and then you'll get those feet pictures.
Hey, sucking dick for feet pics. Hit me up.
And a pack of Newports.
Oh man, that's whew. That was a segue. Anyway, the book ends up basically Rom kills the police guy that was chasing after him and had this sound thing that interacted with the circuitry. Every time he gets hurt, he says that he feels a burning in his circuitry, which just further enforces the fact that, the armor is a symbiotic type relationship. But it's so weird the way they talk about it. Like, he's fused in the armor and his armor hurts, therefore he hurts. Like,
I mean,
his circuitry
I had a
burns.
burn in my circuit. Yeah, I had a burn in my circuitry once. I had to bathe in penicillin for like a month to get rid of it.
That wasn't your circuitry, Ayrton. That was your junk.
Oh.
But this issue ends up with Archie again swearing to get revenge on Rom, and the intro to the next issue says, he comes, Firefall." And honestly, these next 2 issues were probably my favorite out of the first 6.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Firefall.
Yeah. So, in case you can't guess, Firefall is going to become a much bigger deal in the or not Firefall. Archie is. I just gave away the. What the fuck are you doing?
Sorry, the headset. I'm still trying to get the size down. It was pushing on my ear weird. I was trying to adjust the band and not make much noise, but apparently that didn't work.
No, it did not. But I'll let it go. I won't fire you just yet. We've got about 30 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
The introduction to this one shows this is issue 3, and we're back to the original letterer, which was changed on the first or the second issue, and Ben Shawn on the coloring. So they didn't keep colorists throughout this whole thing, but then again, coloring was a much different type of process back then than it is now.
But
You
it
really
still
only
stayed fairly consistent.
it did, but that was what they call house style. I don't know if we talked about that much, but Marvel developed what they called a house style back in the day, and it meant that they wanted everyone to basically draw and letter and color similarly within certain parameters.
Which, you know, yeah, which makes sense, especially, you know, with the whole, you know, like shared universe type idea.
Right. You couldn't have Spider-Man being green in one issue and pink in the next. You had to be red and blue everywhere. But
Yeah.
anyway, they're basically showing a propaganda film to Archie and a panel of psychiatrists and federal agents and everything else. Think of Clockwork Orange. And then Archie kind of loses his fucking mind and is like, "You don't know, man. You weren't there, man. You didn't see it, man. I saw it, man." So, you know, these dire race described, or you know, who have elevated themselves to government officials and shield agents, two of which are smoking in this comic book, something that we don't get very much anymore.
Which is nice.
You know,
I
talk
don't know
about
why I enjoy that.
well,
Like the grizzled old general type character with a fat cigar sitting there yelling at people.
Nick Fury, man. Nick Fury smokes
Yeah.
cigars all the time. But they explain that, you know, Archie Stryker might very well get his chance to avenge the death of humanity that he's witnessed. You know, he got really worked up after seeing two people die at the hands of ROM, and the Dire Race are really gonna stretch that to their, you know, to their advantage. But this is where we go into the issue-ly kind of recap on where we're at. These next couple of pages, as you can see on the right-hand page here, these next couple of pages really kind of start going into the recap, and you can see where they're telling very similar story. Like, it's a recap,
Yeah.
but it is 2.5 pages of recap. So we'll skip past that. ROM is showing us now in issue 3 that he can use a broad range scan of his analyzer, as Ghoul calls it in the chat. And you know, he senses something in the mountains and he takes off after it, and we get a clip over to Brandy, who's left her parents' home in the middle of the night to go back to her apartment, even though her boyfriend told her not to, which apparently is a big no-no back in the 80s. Like, your boyfriend tells you not to do something, you better fucking not do it, or he's going to call you an idiot later and stalk you.
Exactly.
But she's
Or
confronted.
make that goddamn sandwich.
She's confronted with two federal agents.
Put too much mayonnaise on that BLT. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, she's confronted with two federal agents who are, as you can probably guess, Dire Race, and they say they need to go for a little ride and talk to her about ROM. So you cut over to Steve Jackson running through a basic training program, and after he completes it, you know, they make some jabs about the fact that he's not as sharp as he was in Korea, which alludes to his military background. And then they introduce him to a suit of armor that he says he can feel the heat radiating off of, you know, just by standing near it. Cuts back to ROM. And this is the first issue that kind of does this, where they cut back and forth multiple times in a book. Like, usually you might get a flashback or something that ties back into the original story. But by issue 3, you can see where the story is getting a little more comfortable in its telling.
Yeah. And that honestly, probably some of my favorite stuff was the flashbacks
Yeah,
and kind of like that, kind of looking more into like
it,
who Rom is, like as a person,
yeah,
or was as a person, I guess.
right. Um, but Rom is arriving in the mountain bunker that he sends the dire wraiths in, and he proceeds to just wholesale fuck shit up for probably a good 5 or 6 pages. They drive a cargo mover into him that crushes on impact, and then he throws it at a satellite that's designed to be pulling dire wraiths back from the limbo zone. Um, oh shit, Dan, I didn't realize, man. Yeah, that's. We'll talk about that briefly after we get through the review. But
That's why he said sucking dicks for smokes hit me up.
yeah, no shit. Oh damn, I didn't even think about that. Also, clip Ayrton saying that he's sucking dick for smokes.
Okay, I've said much worse and more embarrassing things on this show that could be clipped out than that one. Come on.
Oh, I've already clipped all those out. I need somebody to clip that.
Oh,
for me.
okay.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'll send them all to your boss later so he can have a good laugh. Your boss
Oh,
is
she'll
you.
just laugh.
I thought I was talking about you. But anyway, the satellite explodes and does basically what nothing ever does, but the electricity goes to a telecommunications tower, which somehow affects televisions, telephones, cars, and microwaves.
because comics.
Because comics. So Steve jumps in his car and somehow magically withstands the electricity of or the electrocution that comes from the power surge because the communication tower is fucking with his car, and drives off into the sunset after realizing that his girlfriend is not at her house. But this is kind of where I said the misogyny kind of kicks in.
What? She didn't go to her house and stay there?
Yeah, she didn't stay at her parents' house like I fucking told her. And he literally says, or that headstrong little idiot. If someone wrote this today about a woman, they would
They would
whole
be canceled
cloth
so fast.
they would whole cloth be crucified on social media. Even if it was a fictional female character. But this is the 80s.
Much simpler time.
So Steve arrives at her apartment, realizes that she's gone and her apartment's trashed. Rom's still just blasting away at dire wraiths, and Firefall, aka Archie Stryker, confronts Rom. And Rom realizes that he is in a Space Knight armor suit after mistakenly thinking that this guy was his friend Karis, who was also a Space Knight. So we'll find out in the next issue that the dire wraiths have somehow killed and separated the Space Knight from this armor and shoved Archie into it. And he has taken on the moniker of Firefall, which apparently was also the moniker of the other Space Knight. I assumed when I read this the first time that he made up the name Firefall, but Firefall was apparently the name of the Space Knight that had these powers. It's very strange.
Yeah, that part was a little weird.
Yeah, the writing is a little inconsistent on here. It's good, but it's a little inconsistent. You know, they reiterate the fact that only Rom can see the dire wraiths when he runs his energy analyzer over people. Even though they look like humans, they still look like humans to humans, and he can see them as space wraiths. But when he kills them, human thinks that he's killing other humans. It's very convoluted. But
Yeah, a bit convoluted, but what are you gonna do?
again, this is issue 3 of a series that they probably didn't expect to make 6 issues, and then it made 75. So,
Like, what? We need more story? What do you mean?
what do you mean this toy didn't sell, but the book did? Now, one thing I do want to bring up is the awesome pinup at the end of this book. I think I'm going to print this out in high quality and recolor it. The
I gotta rebring that one up. Hold on.
Yeah, the pinup at the end. ROM shooting his neuralizer off into space. Planets converging on Earth.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that would be fantastic.
So, leading right into issue 4, the fire, the friend, the foe. ROM and Firefall are pretty much duking it out for the duration of this issue until the end. I'm gonna ask for a 1 in the chat if you think ROM wins, or 2 if you think Firefall wins. While we go through this, but they go through this, and
or 3 if you're functionally retarded.
Hold on. There we go. Look, I wasn't going to put that one in there, but if you ask for it. Everybody just go ahead and...
It's always nice to have that extra option.
Yeah, everybody just go ahead and put a 3 in chat, and we'll call it a day. But ROM and Firefall are going at it. Pretty much just balls to the wall. You find out that Archie's armor controls the Galadorian eternal fire, which, even though Earth flames and the flames from stars can't hurt ROM, the eternal fire of Galador can. Fantastic. But anyway, the Firefall armor channels the Galadorian fire. Again, it's not explained how this armor still has any juice left after 200 years and its host being dead. But they put
because
this cat
comics.
They put this cat in it, and he picks a fight with ROM, and the fight pretty much goes on for the entire issue. There's some minor plot development in the middle where Steve is chasing down the dire wraiths that took like Planet Eater from the Transformers movie, the old one, not the garbage shit Michael Bay produced. Who does? Einbrecht, I'm not familiar. Should I shave my beard and dye my hair green for pot? Yes. Absolutely. I 100% endorse that. As long as it's legal.
Up here, yes.
But anyway, there's chloroform in this series, so chloroform is still a thing. But Steve is chasing after the dire wraiths that have kidnapped Brandy. And we cut back to the fight with ROM. Obviously, they're driving in the same direction of the fight. So,
well, of course.
And some dire wraiths get ass blasted back to Limbo by ROM for trying to sneak up on him. Firefall.
Yeah, it's just like, nah, son.
Yeah, Firefall, explains why he hates ROM so much for, killing these humans, and ROM's just trying to desperately explain they weren't humans, I don't kill people, blah, 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 blah. Again, by the time you get to this issue, it really gets tedious reading through the rehashing of everything because, if you're reading it in sequence, but, again, you understand. Now, during this whole ordeal, one of the dire wraiths that kidnapped Brandy pulls out one of the space guns to shoot at Steve, and Rom uses the eternal fire of Galador against Firefall in an attempt to slow him down. They fight.
Yeah, he was. What does he say? Like, I'm gonna cool the air around me to slow the fire down, so I can catch it and throw it back at him or whatever.
My cooling units have lowered my external temperature to the sub-zero cold of space. Cold that overwhelms the living fire. Cold which makes it sluggish, malleable, and allowing me to hurl it back at my its fiery master.
That's some solid science right there.
It's sorcery science.
If Black Science Man read that, he'd be like, "Yeah, that's about right."
That's exactly how it worked. But you get a little bit of a history on the original Firefall or whatever, and then Ron just goes to spanking this dude's ass after trying to be nice for the entire book. Like, he's just literally trying to say, you're an innocent human, I don't want to hurt you, I don't kill people, but Ron just goes to that ass in the last few panels of this book and leaves him just like in a puddled heap.
It makes him call him daddy.
Yeah. Leaves this guy in a puddled heap and explains to him that you've been tricked by the dire wraiths, that armor is bonding to you, there's nothing you can do about it. Now I'm going to fuck you up because you won't listen to me. I mean, that's pretty much where it leaves off. It's just he's in a fire.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, he's in a huddled mess, and then he gets up and he's like, "I can't get this armor off. I can't get it off. It won't come off." And then we cut to a different type of story. Again, back in the 80s, they weren't writing for the trade, so any of this, any of these 1 or 2 issue stories, that's about as long as it got. Maybe 3 or 4 once you count the intro and everything, but you didn't get six issue story arcs.
Yeah, and that's something I like about Usagi Yojimbo. Like, he still writes it like that.
Yeah.
You get maybe 3, like, so far in the new, like, IDW release. I think 3 is the longest that a story arc has gone.
Yeah. Now, this one's probably going to be one of the quicker ones to get through because it's very strange. And that was not a pun that was intended, but I'm pretty proud of it.
Oh, is this the one? Is this the one that has probably one of my favorite lines from him, or is that the next one? Keep going while I find out.
Okay. Well,
can't remember.
In this one, it opens up right after the aftermath of the fight with Firefall. Rom has taken Steve Jackson and Brandy Clark off into the woods, right off the road, and they're hiding from the authorities who have come to investigate the kerfuffle, if you will, of basically 2 armored beings duking it out in the middle of the street.
Oh no, it's the next one.
And Rum's entire mission at this point, like his character kind of keeps changing over these first 6 issues. It solidifies later on in the run, but it's really kind of molded to the purpose of the story in these first few issues. But
yeah,
in the very beginning, he's like, "Well, I've got all the information I need. Fuck this chick. I'm out." Pew! And nowadays, he's like, "Well, they're in danger. The dire wraiths are probably coming after me. I got to take these people because they think I care about them." But it's shown that Steve finally believes Rom in the last issue, having seen a dire wraith, disintegrate after being killed. His neck snapped or something, and the dire wraith just turned into dust after it turned into his true form. So, conveniently, they still can't tell anybody that these things are real, but now 2 people believe Rom. you get a little bit of a flashback into Rom's previous life where his his love interest was just like, well, maybe don't go give up your humanity and become a space knight. And he was like, but I have to because reasons. I'm compatible or some shit. And then you get the Dire Wraith disguised as S.H.I.E.L.D. showing up to card off Firefall. There's a little bit of, dissent shown in this issue in the ranks. And again, we'll later find out that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is a second tier Dire Wraith who was born on Earth, whereas the Doctor is a first tier Dire Wraith who was around during the invasion. It's very strange.
Yeah, really weird.
Steve saw the light of Space Jesus. That's correct. But anyway, they get Firefall out, and in order to catch Rom and his companions, they release the Death Hounds, I believe they're called.
The Hellhounds, I think they call them.
The Hellhounds. Which, I mean, it's good to see that Christianity spread to Galador 200 years ago. But anyway, these Hellhounds are supposedly blind, but they are the best hunting dogs ever. They set off to track Rom, and Rom takes off knowing that they're going to immediately find him. And the Dire Wraiths pull out their space guns, and they're just so brazen at this point. They're telling people, it's just government issue, special edition, or whatever. And they apparently all have the aim of stormtroopers because they can't hit a gunmetal coated 7-foot target who's carrying 2 people. Apparently no one understands what leading is. But the police and non-Dire Wraith authorities are told to basically forget what they've seen. There's a few mentions of Watergate. That's pretty funny.
Well, naturally.
I mean, it goes with the times, right? But you see Archie in the back, who's finally realizing that Rom wasn't full of shit, and telling him, they're telling him that he's fused in that armor and that humans are worthless and all that good shit. Essentially, Rom has absconded with the 2 prime targets, and they're just going to camp out for the night, right? That's essentially what they want to do. Well, they're not going to be allowed to do that because they do find a house, and as soon as they find the house, they go into almost a page-long explanation that Rom doesn't sleep, but he does have to rest, and he does kind of go through his memories while he's resting. So technically he does dream, even though he doesn't need sleep. But he does need to power down sometimes. It's very weird.
Again, very confusing.
Yeah. So he has this premonition, if you will, of Doctor Strange discovering this house. And this is the first issue where they link another Marvel comic to Rom, which I think is interesting. Again, like I said, you can kind of see the slow burn of them slowly but surely integrating this title into the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Now I was surprised to see Doctor Strange show up in that. I was like, oh, huh. All right then.
Well, it's like I said, it's supposed to be sorcery and science, so I think they were just trying to tie the sorcery in a little bit more.
Yeah.
But he has a premonition of Doctor Strange entering this house and banishing a spirit or something.
Yeah, we're still not sure.
And when he wakes up, he's bound by ghostly bands around his legs that he can break with his fist. Calls it magic is black and vile. It's a sorcery of the dire wraiths.
Did you ever want Grom to just shout like "Dire Wraiths," kind of like Captain Kirk shouting "Khan"?
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, that does not happen. That I don't believe. Not in this series. Maybe an IDW series, but
Maybe.
you get a few shots of the house basically kicking Rom in the ass. But
And I love when he gets super confused when the house like throws a table at him,
yeah,
and he's like, "What the fuck, bro?"
yeah. But he does use his energy analyzer and his translator on the demon, and the demon explains that the dire wraiths freed him after Doctor Strange imprisoned him, trying to free their brothers or whatever. But anyway, Rom pulls out the neutralizer, which is apparently the ultimate nullifier as well, and banishes the demon and the house. And it's as though the house never existed.
Yeah, just makes a whole ass house disappear.
Yeah, it's a very
No
interesting
big
one.
deal.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one and done, and it's a nice little callback to Strange Tales with Doctor Strange. But this I think exists more or less to show that the dire race aren't going to be the only enemy that Rom fights, because I don't think you could stretch just the dire race into 75 issues. Like the overarching plot, sure, but if you give 75 issues of Rom just running around shooting dire race with his neuralizer and then running away unharmed, I don't think it would have made 75 issues, right?
No, not at all.
So,
Rom a Ghostbuster.
yes.
Yeah.
A demon buster, actually, but same difference. But you have, you have this nice little tidy one and done comic. You open up with the defeat of Firefall, and that might intrigue you to go look for a back issue if you can find one. But you don't have to have read anything else to read this comic, and don't end the stream. I'm not going to end the stream just yet. We still have another issue to get through. Calm down, Dan.
And then you just lose power right there.
That's right. Everything just goes silent. I thought about just muting for a minute, making the screen dark. I'm not sure I could pull it off without giving the game away. But I thought about it. But
That would have been funny. I probably would have caught on.
I
For a sec, I would have been like, "What the fuck?"
would have just muted my mic and typed to you in Discord.
Okay.
But we open up the next issue, Dog Day Afternoon, and this is again another issue where you kind of get a different enemy other than the dire wraiths. On the cover, you can kind of see the overall plot of the book. Rom is getting out of the back of a van after the kerfuffle with the house. They have ridden into town, and they are riding to Steve's auto shop, which is apparently what Steve does for a living. Steve, who owns the auto shop, is, seeing the girl who works in a laboratory. It's a very even match there. They have so much in common, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, they're carrying Rom around in the back of a van. They offer him some food, and he's like, I don't need to eat. So,
And this is my favorite part. He's staring at a cheeseburger and is like, yeah, I don't have to eat anymore. I basically recharge through like solar radiation. It's more efficient, but far less satisfying.
yeah. And, Steve's just freaking out about his power bill or whatever. And, Rom again is reminiscing about his best girl back 200 years ago. Now,
Because they were going steady and everything.
yeah, and then he had to go and become a space knight for 200 years.
Yeah.
But you get a little bit of setup here, and basically, Brandy and Steve both leave Rom alone in the auto shop to recharge. You check back in, and the dire wraiths are experimenting on Firefall, basically plotting to kill him to take the armor back and use it for something else. But then they have to go and have a meeting with their high council. And this meeting, let me just tell you, this is fantastic. So they step into the board meeting, and the first thing is like, you better not lie, because we can read your thoughts. They're like, yeah, I know. So he then proceeds to just throw the shield agent under the bus after they have the discussion about Firstborn and Born on Earth and shit like that. And this is where you get the sense that the Deathwing has returned. Even though Rom supposedly destroyed it, the Deathwing comes out and basically eliminates the shield agent. Just like, yeah, you're just too much of a risk. Like he didn't even fail at anything directly. He's failed at capturing Rom in 2 days, basically. I think like 2 days have passed over the course of this book.
Yeah,
Maybe
and the
3.
rest of those assholes have failed for 200 years, so fuck you guys.
Right,
You
like
elitist assholes.
right at that point, like, wouldn't all of these people have been dead? After a day of no results, wouldn't somebody have just been like, well, we're all not worthy. We all die by Deathwing.
Like the samurai thing where they have to Hillary Clinton themselves with the sword.
Yeah, seppuku.
Yeah.
But Deathwing comes and visibly frightens the other dire race, which I think is interesting because it showed in the first couple of issues that the Deathwing is indiscriminate. It just fucks everything up. But I like the fact that these guys are described as scientist sorcerers to just explain away their summoning of evil spirits and their technology.
Which again is, I assume, how Elon Musk has done everything that he's done.
Microdosing on acid as well, but yes.
Well, yeah, that too.
But in this issue, you get to see the Hellhounds transform into their human Matrix 2 form, I guess, because they remind me a lot of those albino agents from Matrix 2. If you remember those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they can become intangible or tangible or whatever. Yeah, Deathwing pulled a Palpatine on Rom, absolutely. I completely 100% agree. Rom tries to neutralize them, but he's unable to do so because they like shift through him and fuck up his circuit. Like everything fucks his circuitry up. Like if I ever encounter Rom and he's coming after me like I'm a dire wraith, I'm just gonna plug a headphone jack into him. That'll fuck his circuitry up.
I was just gonna throw magnets at him.
Yeah, anything to fuck his circuitry up. That's his weakness. It's like his kryptonite. But yeah, phasing through him. One of them has to become tangible to like get his blaster away from him or something, and he uses that time to like just throw them, but that causes him to drop his neutralizer, and in doing so, they lock it down with an invisible force field. And start throwing tires at him, which is super
because
effective.
comics.
Yes, is super effective because they throw tires at him until he's in position to drop a car on him. He's basically destroying Steve Jackson's workshop after saying that he was jealous of Steve Jackson. I think this is all a fever dream, and he's just trying to destroy Steve Jackson so that he can have Brandy for himself.
That's a good theory.
But Steve shows up, and
Now, is there like a? I wonder if there's like a little trap door on the suit for like the Wang.
no, man, he didn't have to do that. Remember, he pees electricity. But
Well, and that having sex might fuck up his circuitry.
yeah, well, Steve Jackson shows up just as ROM is trying to subdue these guys and has been overcharged by a downed wire.
Yeah, it's some sort of electrical cable.
So as he's overcharged, he's just, fucking these things up wholesale. And then Steve shows up to help him out and douses one of them in gasoline and throws a lighter on him, a Zippo, and says, "Now to flick my bick," and throws a Zippo. So,
Which, if anybody's ever thrown a lighter,
it doesn't work like that.
that motherfucker isn't gonna stay lit.
No, not at all. I mean, a Zippo would. Now.
I don't know.
Yeah, most of the time a Zippo will. I mean,
If you throw it like that, I mean, I could go light mine and throw it across the room and see what happens.
Next week on the Gospel of Comics, we'll be covering the fact that Ayrton's house burned down. But after defeating the Hellhounds with a downed wire and setting one of them on fire, ROM passes out from being overcharged.
Don't you wish, though, one of them would have pulled out a stick of dynamite and thrown it at one of these
I was a
things?
little disappointed that there was no dynamite in these first 6 issues. However, all in all...
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Those issues of the Shadow Comics that I found at that resale shop.
Yeah.
I really hope there's dynamite in those.
I doubt there's gonna be. Not really are they old Shadow Comics? Like old?
Not old.
Are they Dynamite? Like,
yeah.
It's the publisher Dynamite?
Yeah.
Yeah, then that wasn't Dynamite Shadow. Like, that wasn't Radio Shadow that threw dynamite everywhere.
Well, damn.
He's still badass.
Come on, guys. You missed a perfect marketing opportunity. Anyways.
But all in all, I really enjoyed rereading these. I mean, obviously, I was going to enjoy them because I enjoyed them the first 5 times I read them. But, it really sets up what turns out to be kind of like an epic journey through Marvel. And you really kind of get an idea of how they deal with properties that aren't their own. And the answer is haphazardly at first. Now, as we get through this, we'll see how loose and comfortable they get with this character over time, and what he eventually shapes into. I think as we review the final issue, we should kind of go back and compare the ROM in the final issue to the ROM in the first issue, and just see.
Oh, I'm sure it's much, much different.
Yeah, and just kind of see the evolution of the character over time. But I do kind of want to go through this series as we have time, and just pick out a little bit of it here and there, maybe kind of look at it.
Yeah.
Obviously, if people are interested, if you hated this, obviously let us know, and we'll probably do it again anyway. But we definitely have to look at the IDW, at least the first 6 issues of that, kind of get an idea of how they're different from what we've seen here. But
yeah, do a little compare and contrast.
all in all, this is a classic beginning to a classic tale of comics.
Yeah.
I honestly, besides a modern day like critique of it, like it wasn't written for the trade, so it does reiterate a lot of information. But once you realize how to identify that, you can almost just kind of skip over it. Well, you can just kind of
Yeah,
breeze read through a page or two.
Yeah, which I started to do just naturally after probably by like issue 3.
Yeah,
And just looked at the artwork
pretty much.
because the artwork's super fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Space Jesus ROM is cool, and he gets even cooler, I guarantee. But with that, I do think we're going to have to close up, much to Daniel's dismay. But before we do, I do have one more point that I want to get
Okay.
to. You're fired, Aaron.
Oh. My last point I wanted to get to was that I saw that Mundane Matt blocked Roaming Millennial on Twitter for some reason. I thought that was hilarious.
Yes, he did. She made a point against somebody else, and he started shitting on her for it. And she said, "Have you gotten past your transgressions of flagging people yet?" And he ended up blocking her because he just couldn't take the bans
that's what
after he
happened?
started it. Yeah, he ended up blocking her. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I just saw her retweet the block thing and it just said okay. I didn't actually like look into it to see what happened.
Oh yeah. But
fucking Matt.
anyway, I definitely
But get his book, how to make it on the internet.
That's
social
right.
media.
That's right. That's the way we do it. Anyway,
Isn't it free on Amazon?
I think he pulled it down actually because people were making fun of it. Yeah.
I was gonna say we should review that on an episode.
Although I would like to say it is official. Fats Miss Carols is a Billboard charting album. There is an album shitting on Mundane Matt that will be recorded in the Library of Congress for all time. And just that knowledge in and of itself makes me happy.
Oh, that is so fantastic.
Future generations will know that Matt Jarbo is a fat cuck. Anyway. With that, I definitely. Oh, how's it going, Mr. Deadman? You popped in right at the end of the show. Fantastic. Oh,
hey, how's it going, man?
Shit, I need to get back to him on Twitter. I will DM you tonight. If you need, we can record tomorrow if that's still an option. If not, I am sorry I dropped the ball on that. I was severely hungover yesterday, and I just I couldn't person, so I pretty much forgot that the world existed until today. However, I did not forget about you. As soon as I saw your name, I'm like, oh shit, I need to DM him back. So yeah, just hit me up, give me a time. From that day forward, Monday and Matt could never achieve an erection again. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Anbrecht.
And on that note,
I do think we will close up the stream. Deadman, I will DM you immediately after the show. We will set something up. I'm sorry. Oh, you did it live tonight. God damn it! I'm sorry, dude. I am sorry I dropped it. I do need to have you back on, and we do need to be back on your show, especially with Hill House coming out. In fact, get in the Discord. Let me drop the Discord link again. We'll do a few more minutes. Get in the Discord here. I know you're on Discord. Here you go.
yeah, hop in there. I
Yeah.
actually have time tonight. I don't have to be up super early tomorrow.
Yeah, jump in the waiting room. We'll figure it out live on air. Jump in the waiting room. We'll pull you in, buddy. But
I'll have to be up till like 9:30 or 10 at the latest tomorrow. It's gonna be great.
What are you doing that early, even?
Oh, going to look at a car.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you're shit out on you.
Yeah, and I found a 1970 Volkswagen for $975.
All right. Does it have wheels?
Yeah, all it needs is some interior work and to be painted, and
Are you,
other than that, it's pretty much done.
are you sure it has wheels?
Well, in the pictures the guy sent, there were wheels on it, so we'll see.
All right. Well, while we're waiting on Mr. Deadman, if anybody else wants to jump on and jump in the waiting room, feel free to. We've got a few minutes. I guess we'll go another 15, 20.
Yeah, what the hell?
But
yeah, I'm going super old because I'm sick of radiators. I'm sick of power steering, power windows.
right, you need to work those biceps.
Fuel injectors, like all that shit. Just give me something that's all mechanical. It's nothing's powered on it.
Yeah, that'll be
Tired
great.
of that shit.
Because there are people that still know how to work on that shit.
I mean, I do. That's all I know how to work on.
Well, that's fair.
I had a 71 before. They're super easy.
Now, I did want to ask you this, and I guess we can talk about it live on air. How does this tobacco thing affect you? Like, how fucked is that right now?
We won't know yet. Our projection is we're probably going to be about 30% down in our overall sales and stuff.
Because that's vape juice and everything. Like, you just...
yeah, any tobacco product. If it has nicotine in it, or could have nicotine in it, basically. Or
but
if
it
you
doesn't
put
affect
nicotine in it.
But it doesn't affect marijuana yet. Or do you already have to be 21 to buy marijuana?
Well, Michigan's weird. So for like recreational, to just like walk into a store, you have to be 21. But if you have like the medical marijuana card, you can be 18.
Interesting.
So it's kind of this weird gray area where we're like, fuck it, we'll keep selling it until they tell us to stop.
Okay. That sounds about right.
Yeah. So we still have all that glass, and of course it's installing updates on Discord.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why would it be that easy?
No. But
yeah, our guess is about 30% drop, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're just.
I
think you're gonna have a lot more 21-year-old non-smokers coming in.
Right, exactly. No, but I mean, so I'm part of like a 4-store chain, and my store actually sells the most actual like tobacco instead of like vapes.
Right.
Like my customer base is a lot older than all the other stores. Even like when people come from the other stores, they're like, damn, you do have a lot of old customers. So I don't know if it's going to hit me as much as everybody else. So,
Mr. Deadman, welcome to the Gospel of Comments. I am so sorry I dropped the ball earlier, man. Like I said, I was massively hungover yesterday.
Doesn't my Discord even work?
Huh? Your Discord didn't work?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Can you hear us? Uh-oh. I think he's doing a bit. Mr. Deadman died. It's a pretty good bit if he's doing a bit.
Okay.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
Jesse!
No!
Am I there?
Yeah, you're here. Can you hear us? We can hear you just fine. This is fantastic. Discord is great.
And you guys call us the boomers.
Well, this is probably somehow our fault, so shut up. Yeah, you're here. Can you hear us?
Whoa, I hear myself.
Yeah, he's playing this in the
Ourselves.
background.
Okay.
What's going on?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
This is fantastic.
Can you hear me? Oh, he's listening to the stream and responding.
Oh, that's what he's doing. Whoa, I hear myself.
I'm gonna drag you out and drag you back in. Let's see if that does it.
Oh, I don't hear you in Discord. I have the stream muted, and I don't hear you guys in the Discord.
Hold on 1 second. Let's see if this works.
I'm in the waiting room.
All right. How about that? How about that?
I see that I'm talking, and I see that you guys are talking.
But you can't hear
I don't
us.
hear y'all in Discord.
Interesting.
Check one of my settings here.
Look at the button that looks like a pair of headphones and make sure there's not a line through that.
No, if you deafen, you also mute, so that's not it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. He's probably still using voice meter, which was the bane of my existence. You'll notice that I don't use voice meter anymore, and I have like less. I have less problems with OBS, but if we can't get it work,
what about now?
we can't get it work. Can you hear me?
I hear you guys now.
Oh God,
I hear you.
fantastic! Oh God, fantastic! Well, I hear us too, but
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
I still hear us through your headset, so. But again, that's voice meter.
Well,
I got it.
Oh, did we lose him again?
No,
No.
I'm still here.
No, he's still
Oh,
here.
okay.
Anyway, Hill House.
No, you guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah, we hear you fine. You've been good coming through the whole time. I don't know that he can hear us anymore.
Okay, yeah. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
There we go.
we got
And
it.
you guys shouldn't be able to hear yourself now.
We
Hopefully.
got it. I think we
Okay.
got it. Second double feature on the Boomer Tech issues tonight, guys. Who the fuck expected it?
Look at that.
We're doing this for you people. One day,
Yeah.
when we realize we just failed at YouTube, I'm just going to upload all the clips of our tech issues to another channel, and it'll get monetized in a week.
Well, man, I don't even know what's going to be success anymore on YouTube.
Boomer Tech
What
issues.
is-
Yeah.
I guess so, because you can't make fun of people anymore.
I mean,
mean,
we will
after-
until
we
we get
still
banned.
do it.
Yeah, we will until we get banned.
We do it. Cheating on Monday Matt is a pastime. That's
It's a
well,
rite
that
of
might be an
passage.
exception in YouTube policies,
It should be.
right?
It should be. I think that's why they let him keep all of his
Susan,
fake
whatever her
subscribers.
last name is, like you can make fun of everybody. Just don't make fun of anybody, but make fun of Monday Matt. You have to.
Right. It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's almost if you don't make fun of him, you get banned.
All right. Yeah.
Anyway,
So
with
what's going on, man? I came in at the very end of the show.
it's
like,
all
man,
good. It's all
Gospel
good.
Comics is still going on.
We extended the show just to have you on.
So,
Well,
I want to know what church dropped the ball on.
oh, we were gonna do a year in review kind of thing, and yesterday I
was
was
gonna do a
not a
stream.
human being. I thought it was a video
Yeah,
and we
I
were
was
gonna
doing this
record it.
rumor. Oh, go ahead.
No, I thought it was gonna be a video and we were gonna record it, and then I spent all day letting the wife have her rest because God bless her, she had carried me all through this holiday season. And we finally got a chance to decompress today in the daytime, so I let her have the day and ran around with the kids, read some ROM Space Night, and yesterday I was just complete and utter garbage as a human being, so I just had no idea that the world existed. But I dropped the ball
Well, that's
on getting
okay.
back to him, and I apologize profusely for that. I was really looking forward to it.
So, yeah, like we're doing a best of the decade of horror movies, books, and video games, and invite a bunch of people on who may have various interests because it's kind of a mixed bag, right?
right.
And we're gonna do horror comics, but I know really much jack shit about comics. very little. I don't know enough to really say best of the decade. I would mention Lock and Key. That's not even within this decade, you know.
Well,
But
actually, there have been
it's
books released this decade. Horror's made an actual
Yeah.
pretty big comeback this decade.
okay.
Yeah, but not
Yeah,
just
And
Lock
they
see,
and
just
Key.
released a Lock and Key. They released a Lock and Key story actually in October.
Hmm.
Was that the bonus issue, or was that
It was called Dog Days.
Dog
Yeah.
Days?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
it was like
Did we read that
it was.
one?
I don't think we read that one together.
Go ahead.
We looked at it on the show, but I don't think we read it like as a project.
Okay. Well,
But
damn. Okay. Well, see, that's where you would come in.
Yeah.
But what I could do is maybe later on do a stream, maybe with you guys, definitely
Yeah.
with you guys, about best of horror comics for the decade. That'd be great. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I can go ahead and give you my my hot take on two of them.
All right, there you go.
The Batman Who Laughs was a great horror comic, even though it wasn't marketed as one. Dark Knight's Metal as an entire event kind of thing. And then Sabrina, The Chilling
Was that the one
Adventures
where
of Sabrina.
there's a Batman that's a Joker or something?
Yes, yes. Yes, and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Okay.
The one they based the Netflix show off of. There was a comic book about that beforehand. I'm trying to find the release date for it to make sure it actually falls into. I'm pretty sure it falls into the decade, but spoiler alert: at the end of the comic, she ends up marrying Cthulhu.
Ends
Oh,
up
yeah.
marrying Cthulhu. Okay.
Yeah, and that
No
was
big deal.
that was between 2014 and 2015. But it was, it was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Sabrina Spellman, but it was a much more adult take, and it was probably one of my favorite horror comics that I've ever read, and definitely in my top list of the decade.
See, the problem is though, anytime you bring up Cthulhu now because of Alan Moore,
You
all
think
I can
about
think
Fish
of is
Penis.
the goddamn. Yeah,
Yeah, but that didn't fall in this decade, so. But yeah, man,
yeah.
we definitely will do that, and we will do it exclusively on the Dead Man's Tome podcast. And then we will have you back on at some point on our show to look at Basket Full of Heads once the collection comes out for that.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's a Hill House direct from DC. We talked about the Hill House imprint briefly on one of your last appearances on the show, but it's been too long since you've been on, man. So once Basket Full of Heads
It has
starts
been a
to wrap
while.
up, then
Man, I feel like I don't know how to really explain it, man. I feel like after October, because I was doing a stream just about every day, an episode every day. After that, I don't know if something burned out or something happened, but I was still doing streams and stuff. But like I've been so busy wrapped in what I was doing, and then started covering more of the Vic stuff, and then
mhm.
I don't know, man. It was like my head was spinning. It's like I was losing track. Man, I need to focus on Dead Man's Tome. I need to focus on putting these books out and covering that material because I'm getting too far into the internet drama, and I'm just letting the stuff that I'm supposed to be taking care of just sit and collect dust. I need to,
That's kind of how I felt over Christmas. We barely had time to read anything over the December month because of coming off of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't
and into
think
Christmas.
we read anything.
We read a couple things, but I don't think we covered it on the show. We didn't have time to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't on the. I had a full time job, 3 kids, a Christmas season. Like it was just too much, especially with my job. For those that don't know, I do personalization on stuff, so I was booked solid from the end of November until December 24th at work. I mean, I'm talking 10, 12-hour days, and then you still want to come home and put on a show for your audience, even if it's a small audience. You want to put on a show so you don't fall off.
Right. You got to put on something.
Right. Right. Oh, I hear myself again.
Okay, I'll change that.
I
What about now?
think it's good.
You hear yourself? Okay.
But that voice meter, man, I couldn't do it anymore. It just made me so frustrated, and I was tired of asking for help about it. I was like, fuck it, I'll just do it manually.
Yeah, it's convoluted because it's a mixer. It's a
Yeah.
bunch of dials and shit. You have to make sure. You have to be extremely autistic to use it,
Right.
right?
And I am, but just not in that way. But whatever. But no, we'll have to talk about Basket Full of Heads and some other Hill House titles next time. Maybe you and Damascus can come on.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, man. We'll set it up.
Awesome.
Chad in the chat says some will say Stealing Solo with a horror story for them. I need a story on Stealing Solo. I've heard a little bit about it recently. Someone said that Pocket Jacks has reported the creator of Stealing Solo to Disney. A lot of people gave him flack for that. I don't know enough about it. I don't think that Disney needs any help, like hall monitoring any creators, but it was brought to my attention that it was basically someone using the likeness of Harrison Ford and Han Solo in a book, not even changing it in a Spaceballs type way. So I'm kind of up in the air on how that shit went down.
I'm not familiar with this at all.
I need the lore
send me
on that. Yeah, I need the
put
lore
a
I
link
kinda
or
know a
something
little
in
bit
the
about this.
Discord.
I just remember hearing about this a little bit, but yeah, someone was trying to report with the Han Solo being used,
Yeah,
the likeness, right?
and they
Okay.
apparently the problem with Harrison Ford's likeness being used, because apparently using likeness in a commercial work does not fall under fair use. Which
Well,
I don't understand. Like I'm not a law. I am not a comic. I am just a comic enthusiast. So I don't know. I want to say that Disney definitely doesn't need any help hall monitoring, whether or not this guy was breaking any kind of law or not. Doesn't really concern me. Don't really care. Um, you know, he made $50,000 off of it, but that could possibly come back to bite him in the ass. And I don't have enough of the story to really comment on it. So if anybody knows, like Chad, if you know the full story of that, didn't even ship in an envelope, and it was 9 months late. Yeah, I did hear about that. It shipped in a plastic poly bag with some of the copies even arrived with the address label on the actual comic.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So,
wow.
yeah, the fulfillment center really dropped the ball on that, apparently, according. But again, I would, Chad, I'd love to have you on at some point in time to kind of talk about that and give us the full story on that, but not tonight. We are over budget tonight. I wanted
Yeah, that would
to.
take a stream in itself, man. You could dedicate a whole stream to talking about that issue, I would think.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm trying to get some creators who have recently gone through fulfillment on to kind of talk about their experiences and the hurdles
Yeah.
and hoops they had to go through, all that stuff, because that's fascinating to me.
I mean,
You got to
and
see it kind of
it-
firsthand with Doug TeNapel, but that was almost $1 million campaign. So I'd like to see it for some of these smaller
Right.
guys.
right. And I know we don't really want to get into it right now, but I mean, but it interests me because I don't really read comics. But what interests me is like this pissing matches. I don't know, pissing match, but just like petty back and forth between, I guess, comic skate, anti-comic skate, if you want to call it that, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
and they're like waging war by flagging each other's stuff, going after each other's content. It's like, why don't you just focus on creating your stuff and just don't fuck with the other? How hard is that?
Well, I
Create
will.
your product, sell
I
your
will-
product.
I will say that War Campaign official on Twitter threw the gauntlet down and said, if it ain't memes, it ain't War Campaign. So, there's a lot of people out there who
Okay.
are supposedly latching onto the War Campaign tag and doing things that, do fall under the flagging and the SJW tactics or whatever. And War Campaign
Yeah.
official came out and disavowed those guys. Now I don't know who runs that account. I don't know, if that's a Poe or anything like that. I like War Campaign, but again, yeah, Chad, hit me up. DM me on Discord. I think you're in the Discord now. DM me on there, man. If you're not, the link is right above where Mr. Deadman was asking for a sec. Just join in the Discord and shoot me a DM. Shoot me a DM on Twitter at Church Failure. And we'll set it up. But I'd love to hear more about that. Like it came up on Dillard's stream, and I said something about it being a parody because that's what it said in the description of the title. But it was explained to me, and I did a little research, and from what I was told, which I'm not taking 100% stock in, but I'm not completely discounting either, is that it didn't actually fall under actual parody. But again, we could be here all night discussing that. I don't really want to do that because I'd like to go to sleep at some point.
Right. Yeah.
But-
You got stuff you got to do.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I was just agreeing.
But thanks for jumping on, man. And again, hit me up, and we will definitely schedule a best of horror comics, and we'll get a couple of titles together, and we'll
Cool.
let's see, what have we got? Are you doing a show Monday?
This Monday, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday are pretty much going to be shows, but
We could do Wednesday.
probably
We could do Monday or Wednesday on either one of those. We could come on.
let's see.
The last
this
Monday of
coming-
the year,
This coming
or
Monday,
the
we
first,
have a guest.
or the last Monday of the year, or the first Wednesday of the year. Or we could put it off. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's New Year's Eve. Or no, sorry, that's New Year's Day.
So
Yeah.
we'll all be hungover.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fine.
Probably have a stream just talking about the worst hangovers. that probably more appropriate. Talk about the worst hangovers. If you want to shoot the shit about the worst hangovers yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. Worst hangovers ever.
Oh man.
That should trend, right? Put that on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a show right there.
But anyway,
I can dig it.
This one time I ate bull balls, and man, I wasn't the same since.
I was there for that, and you haven't been the same since. You actually talk differently.
No.
You have a different accent and everything.
Yeah, right.
But
Monday, Matt could use some bull balls. I
He
hope
could.
get some testosterone, right?
that's right. He's eating Impossible
Oh.
Burgers, Jesse. He doesn't know what to do
Oh
with
my
his life.
god, that's the problem. He's growing bitch tits because of that, man.
He had bitch tits before Impossible Burgers came out, but
Yeah, man.
Have you
he's
tried
not-
an Impossible Burger live on air yet, Jesse?
No, I don't want to try any Impossible Burgers. What? I just want a fucking burger.
$100
You know what?
donation to
These
eat an
are-
Impossible Burger live on stream. Go now.
Things are so bad. Things are so bad now. I don't even trust the ground meat you get at a store. That probably is pumped full of estrogen. Oh yeah, we're gonna turn all the men into fucking pussies. We'll put like estrogen in all the ground beef and steak. Yeah,
See,
I don't know.
that's
You gotta-
that's why I eat Taco Bell beef, because 30% of it is like sawdust and other stuff, and we all know from studies that chopping wood and stuff boosts your testosterone.
well, chopping wood does. I don't know about eating sawdust.
I mean, you get sawdust from cutting up wood, so it's
Well,
science.
I fired him
Yeah.
40 minutes ago.
yeah,
Jesse, don't worry about it.
I don't know. I see a picture there of a big burly lumberjack getting all manly, and then I see like a Monday Matter, a Maddox over there on the floor licking up sawdust. Like, I don't know, man. But yeah, you just have to get your own meat now. You have to kill deer. You have to take it on.
I don't
Bring
see
in
the
your own
issue.
fucking meat. Yeah, have your own cattle. I don't know, man. Dude, the problem is inviting me on this show. We could just talk forever. So
Yeah.
That's true.
Indubitably.
I don't stop.
I don't mind though, except that I do have to get off the air at some point tonight. But I do want to thank
Yeah.
everybody for coming out and checking us out. All that YouTube shit, I'm not even going to bother. But definitely, we will be back tomorrow night doing what, I don't know, but we'll be here.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we will be here, and it will be interesting. So, give us a give us a shout if you have any ideas, if you have anything you want to talk to or talk about. Jesse, thanks for jumping on, man. Thanks to SJW Spidey for coming in earlier. Ayrton, as always, thank you for helping helm the show here.
All right, no problem, no problem. Dead Man's
Good
Tome.
night,
Check it out.
everybody.
There's that plug.
Also, check out Dead Man's Tome over on Jesse's channel. If you want to link it in the chat before we go ahead and do that. Did you do your outro there, Ayrton?
I was about to,
Oh, go ahead.
but then I figured I'd let Jesse show real quick.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.